Hello, everyone. For this train stop, I wanted to talk about my book again. When I started writing it, I felt like I had boarded a train to a destination I knew nothing about. I only had a vague idea of where I was going, and even now, after all this time, I still feel like I'm learning the route as I go. When I first started writing my book, I had no idea whether or not I was capable of writing it the way I wanted to, because I did not know if I could pull off things like politics and romance. I had to experiment a lot with it. I never thought I would be good at writing politics because I'm not an expert in politics. I pay more attention to it now than I used to, but I have never fully felt comfortable with it. For example, I always felt like if I tried to debate someone who was really skilled, I would probably get defeated instantly. I don't have the kind of knowledge you can recall instantly in a way that sounds politically coherent, and that made me doubt whether I could write political themes in a believable way. What was interesting is that I originally tried to avoid politics in my book altogether, but it somehow ended up becoming one of the main themes anyway, and when I had the story peer edited, a few people commented that I was actually good at writing politics, which confused me because I had always assumed I was bad at it. But it kind of goes to show that you can't really escape politics. You internalize it whether you like it or not, and it might appear in your writing in ways you don't expect. One of the ways I gave myself freedom was by placing my story in Atlantis and also setting it in the year 3000 so I would not have to deal with current politics. That distance let me build the world however I needed. It allowed me to reinvent politics and think about them in ways I never would have been able to otherwise. I was not trying to recreate anything modern. I just wanted room to explore ideas without worrying about real-world categories. I ended up working with the idea of moral pragmatism, which is basically a focus on preventing harm before it happens instead of reacting later. At first, I thought this might be too controversial. I worried people would misinterpret what I was trying to do, but when I did deeper research, I realized that elements of moral pragmatism already exists in today's laws. We already have systems like background checks, certain licensing requirements, and child protection laws that try to prevent harm before it happens. Once I understood that, I realized the idea was not as controversial as I originally thought. My story simply imagines a world that builds on those concepts in its own way. I also struggled a little bit with my main character and the people she leads because I based them on ancient legends, mythology, and religions, including ideas like the Anunnaki, the fallen angels, and the gods and goddesses all around the world. I imagined all of that as a group of humans who created a utopian society, advancing faster than everyone else, and eventually ended up in outer space, which led them to being mistaken for gods and goddesses. But those kinds of ideas can drift into controversial territory if you're not careful. I wanted to make sure everything stayed firmly fictional, and I had to think through how to move forward with that concept without letting it get misunderstood. Because of that, I talked to ChatGDP about these ideas as a safe space to think through them without worrying about someone jumping to conclusions. I used it as a tool for brainstorming, breaking down concepts, and looking at my world from different angles. It became a kind of assistant, helping me move past the fear of handling these ideas in the wrong way so I could actually write the story I wanted to tell. Another thing that helped me was the Emotion Thesaurus and the whole series of writing guides by Angela Ackerman and Becca Puglisi. Their books on emotions, emotional wounds, character traits, and settings help me learn how to show what a character is feeling instead of just naming the emotion. These books helped me write scenes that readers connected with, even though I originally doubted myself. One of my proudest moments in the entire writing process was actually a romance scene. I thought I would be terrible at writing romance, but I used that book series to help me shape the emotions and reactions. When I had it peer edited on Scribophile, one of the readers told me he despised romance novels and dramas so much that he avoided them like the plague because they made him gag. But He was not only able to read my romance scene without hating it, but he actually liked it. And this was probably one of those stereotypical men who couldn't stand emotional stories. So the fact that I was able to make someone like that enjoy a romance scene made me incredibly happy. I'm not saying I could make everyone feel that way, but being able to do it even just once was enough for me to feel good about myself. And honestly, some of my scenes were simple. I used to think that meant they were bad. I once wrote a scene where two politicians get into an argument, and instead of giving them long speeches or complex strategies, I just had one of them punch the other. I thought it was too simple, but later I realized that simplicity made it feel more real. People do not always act in sophisticated ways, sometimes they just react. Once I understood that, I stopped trying to force complexity into scenes that did not need it. Writing this book has been a long journey of experimenting, doubting, learning, and rebuilding. The things I was most afraid of, like politics and romance, ended up becoming some of the strongest parts of the story. I did not play it completely safe, but I moved forward carefully and allowed myself to explore ideas in a fictional world without letting fear stop me. And now I feel like I'm still on that same train. The scenery has changed, and I understand more than I did when I first boarded, but I'm still moving. I'm still figuring things out one stop at a time, and the journey is far from over.